Thanks for staying with us. So according to reports, World Health Organization, WHO, was informed of a confirmed case of monkeypox recently in an individual who traveled from the United Kingdom to Nigeria and subsequently returned to the UK. On the show today, we have the head of Infectious Diseases Unit, Department of Medicine, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Irohe Akashe. He'll be telling us what we need to know about monkeypox and what we need to do to prevent it. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Akashe.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for having. So, when we heard the news about monkeypox, we thought that this was something that we've been vaccinated against monkeypox, and it shouldn't be something we should be worried about. But in your view, why is there a recent outbreak of this globally?
Okay, so monkeypox, to just correct, we have not really been vaccinated against monkeypox. It's not something that's been, endemic in the human population. But such a big problem in terms of the human illness. Of course, it's a zoonotic illness, which means that it can be transmitted from animals to humans. It's endemic around in most of West Africa and Central Africa. It's related to other. So when you say pox illnesses generally refers to illnesses that present with, vesicles or I don't know, like a small water-filled blisters on the skin, small size. So it's related to something like chicken pox. Most of us know what chicken pox is. And then, of course, for quite a number of us who are old, people who are older, of course, they can also remember smallpox, which was eradicated in the 70s. So in a way, they are all related. And one characteristic of most of the pox illnesses is that they present with rashes on the skin, with warm water. They eventually may become infected. And sometimes also, in few people affect other organs like the lungs, the brain, and cause severe illness. But to a large extent, there are mild illnesses that you expect them to, expect people to recover fully, when they get infected with that. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, doctor, what's the news about it? Why is it trending everywhere? We as Africans are used to the chickenpox, the monkeypox, and the ways our mothers have always dealt with it. No panic. But we see this panic everywhere recently in the news as if everyone wants to fall. They are bringing it back like COVID. Why exactly? What's
going on?
What's happening?
Okay, so there are two reasons why it's generally it's bringing up a lot of panic elsewhere. And, it's, for one, we've seen over the past few years that any outbreak anywhere in the world puts, every other person at risk. And that is because for us in Africa, like you rightly said, it's the endemic, so most of us in Africa have some level of immunity against it. In other parts of the world, they don't have that much of immunity now because people, like I said, in the 70s and early 80s, people had vaccinations against smallpox, and that vaccine could, also confer some level of protection against monkeypox. But of course, since smallpox was eradicated, nobody's getting that kind of vaccine routinely anymore. So they don't have the kind of immunity, against that as before. So naturally, it's sort of like in an uptick in the number of infections they are having, compared to what was there before. So of the truth, we're having an increase in the number of cases. And like I said, to a large extent, we expect that people should be fine. But as we've seen with COVID and its behavior with most viruses, you get the occasional person who has, a weak organ function somewhere, and these infections can cause, severe illness. So this is one. But right. Secondly, it also shows that the relationship between animal behavior, that's rodents and humans, and you saw that with COVID how an animal infection broke into the human population and caused such devastation. We've seen that with increase in number of cases of Lassa fever the past 2 years. Now we're seeing it with monkeypox. It's called monkeypox because it was first discovered in monkeys. It's not that monkeys are the drivers now. Now the biggest drivers remain things like dogs, rats, rabbits, those things that people have increased communication with.
What? Go ahead, Waike.
Yeah, some of us on this table, we love bushmeat. So, and I read somewhere that NCDC was saying that bushmeat is one of the ways we can catch monkeypox. So, would you advise that we curb the bushmeat consumption or it's okay if we boil the meat very well?
You can call name.
If you roast it, Uncle.
Yeah. You're correct in that. That, you know, like I said, it's a human to animal interaction that, you know, exposes people to this infection. So people who, number one, are hunters who catch this bushmeat, and then those who process it, that is those who touch the meat where it's still wet and, you know, very infectious, of course, and those who eat a poorly prepared, you know, specimen can, you know, can get infected potentially. So, but we have a scenario where, and so ideally, of course, the first, you know, thing is that, well, we should avoid it if they can. But we don't know, like they said, that, you know, we're Africans who love our bushmeat. So there is a program, and it's an attempt to train hunters and those who, you know, interact with animals, who catch them, train them, you know, guide them on how to prepare it safely, you know, and cook it well. Because if it's well cooked, of course, it's not going to be infectious. But, you know, since you don't have no officers supervising everyone who cooks and prepares bushmeat, of course, as a government, they will tell people to avoid it. But we know that people cannot, well, it's not possible for everyone to avoid it. So they train people, okay, this is how to prepare, make sure that the fluid from the animal does not, you know, you don't get exposed to that, and, you know, you cook well. So people, you know, will eat that. This is the science of it. But in terms of advising people, of course, you tell people that it's better to avoid it. But when you cannot avoid it, of course, you have to prepare it very well.
All right, sir. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has said that there is no cure for monkeypox. There's no treatment for it. So what happens when someone contracts it around you? What are some of the things we can do to help that person and not make it contagious for people around?
Okay, so the presentation of monkeypox may present with the blisters, and that's what everybody knows and talks about. However, sometimes people may not present with that, just, you know, body aches, and most people, you won't know that they have it. So the general advice in terms of you feel that someone is ill around you still remains the same. They should present to hospital. There's no treatment, you know, really, but when now there's an outbreak and somebody has a fever or a rash on the body that you don't know what it is, they should come to hospital. Or if they're not that ill and feel that they can help it through, they should isolate and, you know, at home. We don't know what is home self-isolation now. COVID has taught all of us that. For monkeypox, it's advised that people should isolate for up to 3 weeks. The incubation period can extend up to 20 days. So people should, you know, stay away from others, and it's transmitted by touch. So hand washing, again, is the one that comes in very, very, you know, relevant here. You don't need to put so many gadgets, but just make sure that you wash your hands properly when you get in touch with someone or something that you feel is suspicious. The good thing about viruses is that, in the basic hygiene process, we sort of take care of them. So hand hygiene, you know, essentially will, you know, take care of that. But if you come in contact with someone, you know, report, because it's a possible illness. But then again, simply just self-isolate for up to 3 weeks, and other people should be fine.
Yeah, good.
All right, let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue with this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. All right, we still have our doctor in the building. Waike had a question before the break. Go ahead, Waike.
Yes, I'm hearing there's no cure, there's no cure. There's no treatment. So can you recover from monkeypox? 1, does it kill? 2, and 3, why are they saying it's coming from Africa? Is it from Africa, true?
Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so your first question, can you recover? Yes, you can. In fact, over 95% of people recover, you know, from monkeypox. The biggest complication people have is the scars that may be left on their skin. That's for women. I'm sure for most people that can be a big deal. But I mean, it's not life-threatening. You know, if you look at it like that. But can it kill? So yes, in a selected number of people, I was mentioning that people who have compromised organ function, who have underlying, heart problems. Just the way we talked about COVID, heart problems, lung problems, and all that. The infection can become severe, and such people can die. Again, the peculiarity around monkeypox is that it's sort of severe in children. So children sort of tend to have more severe disease, than adults. But generally, people expect people to recover, from it. Why did they say it comes from Africa? It was because it was first discovered in Africa. DRC Congo, with its very large forest, has been a huge reservoir there. Two, our interaction with rodents and other forms of, so-called bush or forested animals, and all that sort of makes it a very that. And then thirdly, our process allows for widespread of infection within the community. So it's sort of endemic here. So, when people come here, it's easy for them to circulating within us. So it's something, and that's why you see somebody comes to Africa, goes back, and they pick it, but not picking it there because people have some level of immunity against it, and it's circulating freely. But for them, like I said, the immunity that they got against smallpox vaccines has waned. So they're, more or less, and we're going to be seeing more and more of this, in the months and years to come. Yeah.
So I hear that the monkeypox is a mutation from the smallpox, and one of the ways the Western world was able to, get ahead of it was to have a vaccine that worked for everybody. Now, I don't know if that vaccine is still available, the smallpox vaccine now, and is there any way that people can begin to use that to, shield themselves from having the monkeypox?
Okay, yes. So it's not really a mutation per se. They're related. When you say mutation, scientifically you are saying it is one thing but has changed shape into another thing. Okay. In this case, they're related but not the same virus at all. But the smallpox, because they are closely related, the smallpox vaccine has provided some level of protection against it. So yes, what is happening now is that for people who are high-risk exposed, so for example, people who work in the laboratory and handle that, or people who, have had high-level exposure, they can be given the vaccine as a reactionary measure, or people who are working in very high-risk environments who are, what's the word now? Tampering with this kind of virus for research purposes can be given the vaccine, preemptively. But generally, as a public health measure of mobilizing that vaccine, for everyone, the level of alert has not reached there yet, because you will know that mobilizing vaccines does have its risks and all of that. So that is there. But clearly, that stockpile of the smallpox vaccine that's currently available, that has been stockpiled, in the hot zones, more or less, especially in the Western world. So if and when the case of monkeypox do reach a level where they start disrupting healthcare services and other activities the way COVID does, then I'm sure you hear the discussion around vaccines being mobilized on a wide scale. But at the moment, no.
So since it broke out in many non-endemic states and countries, we don't have much to worry about here, correct?
Sorry, come again.
Since it broke out in many countries where it's not very, it's not endemic, do we have nothing to worry about in this side of the world, right? In Africa right now, it's still okay. It's under control. Can we go with that?
No. Well, so generally, in terms of being proactive and planning, now we have a global health system. We know that once you have an infection somewhere, every other person is at risk. So global public health institutes like the WHO, the Africa CDC, the NCDC have the responsibility to make sure that structures are put in place, which means, number one, because now two things can happen in an outbreak. One, you have those who do not have immunity and so are at risk of having severe disease and dying or having complications. That's one population. Then you have the other population who have some level of immunity, but who are having active infections but not presenting with illness. That group those are the kind of groups that can, within their body, they're not sick, but they're having infections. That's why mutations can keep occurring. It's like a laboratory where, we can't say in Africa that we're fine and no problem.
Okay.
We need to put in place structures, advisories, have the discussion on the front burner like we're doing now, so people know how do we interact with our animals going forward. How should the idea of hand hygiene be on the front burner? People need to just have that kind of consciousness where we know that, okay, there's something going on and we need to do something about it. And I think that if everybody understands that we all have a role to play, I may not be sick, but I can contribute to the discussion and do something in my own part, then, I think that would be the
All right, let me get a final question in for you. Go ahead.
So what's the link between treatment and the African herbal treatments, where we usually call agbo, towards things like this?
Okay, so at the moment, there's nothing to show that, that helps. Other than that, some of these herbal treatments will have, contain certain generic or non-specific antioxidants. So you have certain plants that have strong antioxidant properties that should be able to generally do that. But the challenge with the herbal treatment always remains lack of standardization. Nobody exactly knows what's inside, who prepares them. Is there somebody because anybody can prepare from the house. How do we know that they prepared it hygienically, and all of that? But so generally, from the orthodox point of view, always there's kind of suspicion that comes because number one, that interface is not strong. We don't exactly know what that does and how it does what it does. But obviously, for us Africans, you see people speaking strongly about. But as a public health measure, obviously you cannot push that out. This is the idea that it's mild, severe in the people. The best bet against this is to find ways of preventing its spread within the community. And simple measures like handling, it should be able to take care of that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akashi, for joining us this morning. We appreciate you shedding light on monkeypox for us. That's all we can take on this segment. When we come back from what's our hot topic of the day, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.